This is the second video of the Forged Fiction series. If you haven't seen the first episode on the Gospel of Mark, be sure to check it out by clicking on the link in the description or clicking on the annotation on the screen. Without further ado, let's jump right into the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew is the second Gospel written. It's generally agreed that Matthew rewrote Mark not only to fix and improve on it, but also to reverse its too Gentile-friendly argument. Mark favored a brand of Christianity in which Torah observance was optional. Matthew, on the other hand, comes from a community of Torah-observant Christians and is keen to have Jesus insist that we continue to make all converts remain or become practicing Jews, with circumcision and dietary laws without the cult rituals. Matthew takes time out of his day to fix Mark's geographical mistakes and mistakes on scripture and Jewish law. Although, Matthew not only fixes Mark's mistakes, but also the mistakes of Mark's Jesus. For example, take Mark 6:5-6. He could not do any miracles there except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them, and he was amazed at their lack of faith. But Matthew knew the thought of Jesus not being able to do something was ridiculous, as well as the thought of Jesus even being surprised. So he fixed it. In Matthew 13:58, and he did not do any miracles there because of their lack of faith. But sometimes Matthew drops the ball and makes the story logically impossible. For example, let's take a look at their accounts of Jesus' triumphant ride into Jerusalem. In Mark 11:1-10, he has Jesus ride in on a donkey. But Matthew's account is a bit different in Matthew 21:1-9. Matthew has Jesus ride into town on 2 donkeys at the same time. Yeah, you heard that right. Why? Because Matthew wanted the story to better fit the Old Testament prophecy in Zechariah 9:9. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, thy king cometh unto thee. He is just in having salvation, lowly in riding upon an ass, and upon a colt, the foal of an ass. We can also see how Matthew chooses to write a more Jewish-based Jesus, when we look at the intricate details that turn Jesus into a new Moses. Scholars have long known that Jesus' nativity narrative is a rewrite of the nativity of Moses. Matthew also has Jesus deliver his commandments on a mountain in the Sermon on the Mount. And in Matthew, Jesus' Great Commission from a mountain is designed to echo Moses' Great Commission before he ascended a mountain to die. After the rewrites, we can still see a certain literary style. After Matthew introduces Jesus' ministry, the story is broken up into 5 separate divisions, all ending with the phrase, "And it happened when Jesus had finished." Let's just take a look at the story. In Matthew 1-4, we have the narrative, the birth, the baptism, and the ministry. In 5-7, we have the discourse, Jesus' demands upon Israel, and that discourse ends with the phrase at Matthew 7:28-29. Chapters 8 and 9, we have the narrative, Jesus' deeds within and for Israel. In 10, we have the discourse, teaching the disciples how to do the same, ending with the phrase at 11:1. 11-12, we have the narrative, Israel's negative response. In chapter 13, we have the discourse, an explanation of Israel's negative response, and that ends with the phrase at Matthew 13:53. 14-17, we have the narrative, founding the church. In 18, we have the discourse, teaching for the church, and that ends with the phrase at 19:1. 19-22, we have the narrative, entering Judea and ending in Jerusalem. 23-25, we have the discourse on the future judgment and salvation, and that ends with the phrase at Matthew 26:1. And then we have the concluding narrative in 26-28, the betrayal, the crucifixion, and the resurrection. Just like the Gospel of Mark, the Gospel of Matthew is not only clearly written as fiction, but it is also a rewrite of Mark. And if Mark was written as complete allegory, which it most likely was, then how are we supposed to interpret Matthew? further reading, check out On the Historicity of Jesus by Richard Carrier, or David Fitzgerald's Nailed. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter, and if you like the content, please consider dropping a like and subscribing. Be sure to share if you learned something, and we'll see you next time.